Welcome back to 10-Minute IO, where you'll find all topics related to industrial organizational psychology. This is part 2 of HR data analytics. Last time we talked about what is HR analytics, and we said that this was taking HR-related data, such as turnover, hiring ratio, performance evaluation, all the data that HR professionals keep, and taking that information, running through some analysis based on the questions you have, and then arriving at some decisions or recommendations. We'll go through, in this session, go through an example of how you might do that. So you have some HR data. So what do you do with that? Now what? There's a 4-step process that I'm recommending here. First is you select an issue to explore. When you think about HR, there could be a number of different issues that you can tackle. When you're starting out, it's wise to start with one issue that's manageable, and then develop some hypotheses or questions that you would like to test. Once you have a question that you like to tackle, or issue that you like to tackle, then you want to determine what metrics, data you will need to test your hypothesis. Once you have that, then you will go on to analyzing that data or applying sound analyses. Once you get the results from the analysis, you'll make a recommendation. Let's walk through each one of those. Step 1, select an issue to explore. When you're selecting an issue, there's some key questions that you like to run through. One is start with the issue that's most critical to you, top of mind issue. What's keeping you up at night? Is it turnover? Is it training? Is it onboarding? Are the new employees leaving too soon, maybe within the first 3 months or so? Is this an important issue for our organization? Is it relevant? There are some issues, HR-related issues, that are not relevant to organizations. Some organizations desire high turnover rate. If you think about fast food industries, they have up to 300-400% turnover rate, and that's perfectly okay because their training period or the duration is very short. It only takes a few hours to train a new employee, so it's not that big of a deal. Whereas an organization that requires or set of positions that require, let's say, 6 months training, like the insurance industry, high turnover is not a desirable thing. But for the most part, high turnover is not a good thing for most organizations. Third thing is, among the issues identified, think about which will give us the biggest bang for our buck if we were to address it correctly or improve the metrics related to that. That's important because most organizations have a budget for their whatever intervention, HR-related intervention. So if you can spend $5 and gain $50, that's better than spending $5 and gaining $10 back. So you want to think about what is going to give us the biggest value for the spend. Once you've selected an issue, you'll want to develop some questions, or sometimes people call it hypotheses, that you would like to test using your analyses. So there's a couple examples there. First one is there high turnover among employees who live further from our home office? That's one question you can test based on the information you have in your HR database. Second example is, can lack of career advancement opportunities lower employee engagement or lead to higher turnover among certain populations? And you can break down your data into different subgroups to test that hypothesis. Once you've done that, step 2 is to select the appropriate metrics. What data, or variables we call, do we need to answer the questions or test my hypothesis? And I have an example here that I'll walk through. Let's say the example is high turnover. Organization has very high turnover, let's say 30-40%. To determine what percent of the total, what your turnover percentage is, you can get that information from the Human Resource Information Systems, HRIS. Usually it's just a database that HR professionals keep, information related to their employees. Then you'll want to be more specific in your questions. The question might be, and this is just an example, voluntary, what's the percentage of voluntary turnover? People who leave voluntarily as opposed to being fired, which is involuntary turnover. Employees who are asked to leave would fall into that category. Another question is percent of high performers. If you're able to determine, among the people that are employees that are leaving your organization, what percentage are considered to be high performance? And of course, you'll need the performance evaluation data for that to determine whether they are, in fact, high performers or average or low performers. Once you have those questions, then you'll want to investigate why, speculate on why that might be. Why is the voluntary turnover so high? Why is the involuntary turnover so high? Why are the high performers leaving at a much greater rate than other groups? And you can gather that information through surveys and interviews. Companies often conduct exit surveys when employees leave, or many companies will conduct annual engagement surveys or quarterly pulse surveys. And that's a great way to gather information on some. Once you have that information, then you'll want to apply some analyses, and there's various tools. In later session, I'll walk through how to do some basic analysis using Microsoft Excel, but there's others like Tableau, SPSS, R, Python, SAS, and so on. There are dozens of softwares that you can use to analyze data. Some concepts that I'll be talking about in the future are some basic descriptive statistics like means, ratios, scatter plots, and so on. But also correlation, regression, how to conduct a t-test, what significance testing is, and many other advanced analysis techniques that are available that you can use. But really, all you need in many cases to answer some of these questions or test your hypotheses, you just need to calculate some means, create several columns in a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, and calculate some correlations to determine whether there is in fact a statistically significant difference between different populations. And I'll walk you through how to do that in later sessions. Once you do that, you want to make a recommendation. Here's an example of high turnover. Using the data that you have in the HRIS, we've determined that there's high turnover among high performers, shown to be at 35% compared to average and low performance at 20%. Based on that information, we did some correlational analysis using survey engagement data as well as exit data. And we found that career advancement was a significant factor in driving the high performers to leave at a higher rate than other groups. The R equals 0.62 there indicates correlation of 0.62 for high performers. Based on that, we can recommend mapping out clearly and communicating potential career opportunities for all employees and the career paths. A lot of companies, in many cases, employees don't know their particular career path, that they can actually, transfer to a different department if they wish. So that if those are available to employees, then you'll want to make sure that you communicate that clearly to your employees and in a way, you're indirectly also communicating that they are valuable part of your organization and that you want them to stick around. Well, that's it for HR data analytics. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the recording, please share with others. If you have any topic suggestions, as always, email me directly. And coming up next, we'll be talking about correlations. Have a good day.